In this video, we're going to be talking about the classification of leaves and the different types within those classifications. We classify leaves based on their shape and structure and venation. So by classifying these three, we're going to be looking at a bunch of examples. As you can see all around me, we're going to be looking at a bunch of examples to see how this fits into our real world. So the most simple division of leaves are simple and compound leaves. Simple leaves, as we see over here, they have a bigger surface tension. They have an undivided blade, meaning that the blade is all one entire thing. They're not as complicated as the compound leaves. So you typically find this in your backyard on a tree or something, but they're able to gather more sunlight because they have a wider surface area which supports more chlorophyll in the Palmate mesophyll. However, we have compound leaves, and there are two different sections when comparing in compound leaves. We have pinnate compound leaves, as seen over here, and palmate compound leaves, as seen over here. So when comparing the simple and compound leaves, we see that the simple leaf, it has a midrib, but for compound leaves, there's one miniature stem that connects to the main stem. This miniature stem supports multiple different leaflets, and unlike the undivided leaf blade where the entire thing is full, there are multiple different leaflets, as I just said. So there are multiple different, so it actually has a divided leaf blade. So let's look at pinnate and palmate compound leaves. So pinnate has this miniature stem that spreads across, and we have multiple leaflets attaching to it on separate petioles. These petioles attaching to this miniature leaflet with miniature stem, which attaches to the main stem, is called a pinnate compound leaf. Lastly, we have palmate compound leaves. So palmate compound leaves, as you can see, kind of look like the hand, like these three fingers. However, unlike the pinnate compound leaves, where they have this miniature stem where the leaves attach to the miniature stem, they have a single point to where these leaves extend out. This is called the rachis. And basically, this point supports either multiples of 3 or more different amount of leaves. So now that we talked about the basic classification of leaves, we're going to be looking at a deeper perspective of it. We're going to be classifying based on venation, based on leaf arrangement, based on their margins, and based on their shapes. So first, let's look at venation. When we look at venation, as you can see over here to the left, we have parallel veins. They start out all together over here at the petiole, or they can start out over here at the axil. But whatever it is, it ends up meeting up kind of like a magnetic field. You could see it like this over here. This looks kind of like a magnetic field. The parallel veins don't end up touching the midrib unless it's at the ends of the leaf. So parallel veins are mainly found in simple leaves. Next, we're going to be moving to palmate leaves. So when we look at palmate leaves, so we have this main midrib. However, we have other veins that extend out from the midrib. These veins move to different parts of the palmate leaf. So we can see there are multiple different sections of the palmate leaf, but each vein splits out from the midrib to different sections to be able to collect that sunlight or carbon dioxide. Then, lastly, we have pinnate leaves. Pinnate leaves look kind of similar to these parallel leaves. However, instead of moving in a parallel rotation, they move in a much more curved rotation, and they still touch the midrib over here. So the midrib is actually the base for allowing the veins to continue and spread out. Next, we're going to be classifying leaves based on their leaf arrangement. So when we look at leaf arrangement, there are 3 different ones. We have opposite leaves, alternate leaves, and whorled leaves. So first, let's look at opposite leaves. Opposite leaves are basically a pair of leaves, or just 2 different leaves, that meet up at the exact same section or at the exact same height. So they have 2 petioles that have a certain intersection over here. Next, we have alternate leaves, like this example over here. We see that the petioles don't exactly meet up at the exact same height. They meet up in different sections towards the miniature stem or the main stem. But whatever it is, they don't meet up at the exact same height. And lastly, we have whorled leaves. They're kind of similar to opposite leaves. However, instead of just having a pair, they can be in a trio or in more leaves. They all meet up at the exact same height or exact same section and share a same similar point or intersection where all of them meet at one place. It's kind of like a mix of pinnate compound leaves and palmate compound leaves if you really think about it. Next, we're going to move on to the leaves that are classified based on their margins, or at the ends of the leaves, as we can see over here. So this is an entire or smooth type of leaf. So an entire or smooth type of leaf is where it looks like it's basically a simple leaf. This extension or this smooth leaf is to be able to get more surface area, so there's more chlorophyll. However, there are other kinds of things too. Another one we have is wavy. So instead of having that smooth one, instead it moves up and down based on the type of environment. This is mainly so that like in areas where there's sunlight hitting the most, it would grow there rather than here where there's like barely any sunlight hitting it. Then we have lobed. Lobed is basically similar to entire smooth or wavy, except this time there's very curved indentations into the leaf. Next, we have serrate and double serrate. Serrate is also very similar to entire smooth. However, instead of having that smooth outside, instead they have a very toothed outside. It's very the purpose of this is to stop insects from trying to crawl over the leaf. And basically, double serrate has the exact same purpose, except it has more toothed surfaces around the leaf. And lastly, we have bristle tipped, also known as just lobed. This kind of looks like lobed, except this time it has a much more sharper indentation compared to regular lobed. You could kind of see it as a mixture of like serrated or double serrated with a mixture of lobed. Alright, and lastly, we're going to classify leaves based on their shapes. Leaves have a different shape based on the type of environment. So if it's a very shady area, they would rather have a much more complicated leaf structure that'll be able to get the most amount of sunlight. However, if it's a very non-dense area, they would have a much more rounded or circular kind of leaf that will be able to get the most surface area to get the most sunlight. So it's basically it's based on the environment that the leaf shape looks like. So first we have circular or round, which is basically kind of like a round structure around. Next is oval, as you know from the name. This kind of looks like the oval shape. Then we have elliptical. Elliptical is kind of similar to oval, except it's much more thinner and stretches much more around the end over here at the petiole and the axil over here, or the top. Then we have linear, which is way more taller but way more skinnier. Then we have lance. Lance, it has a very wide base but a very pointy top or very pointy axil over here. We can see it like this. So it's wide, but it slowly gets narrowed down towards as we go towards the axil. Then we have the heart. It looks like a heart when I turn it upside down. So this is heart. And then we have egg or ovate. Egg or ovate, it's kind of similar to oval or elliptical or like lance, except it's not as sharp around at the axil. It's more curved. And then lastly, we have triangular. And as the name probably suggests, it looks like a triangle. So this is the different classification of leaves and the much more deeper perspective when looking at it.